Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session, Solving for Equality, with two fantastic women entrepreneurs, Nicole Bassett, who's the founder and CEO of the Renewal workshop, and Rudayna Abdo, founder of Thaki. My name is Hala Hanna. I'm the managing director of MIT Solve. And maybe let me tell you what links the three of us here. Solve is an initiative of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a marketplace for social impact innovation. So every year we launch global challenges and call for solutions worldwide on topics like the circular economy, refugee education, or digital inclusion. We then select the most incredible and promising tech-based social entrepreneurs like Nicole and Rudayna. And we bring together MIT's innovation ecosystem and a community of 120 member organizations that can fund and support these entrepreneurs as they scale their impact. 52% of our tech-powered startups are women-led. So I always take pleasure in saying if you can't find women entrepreneurs, you're just not looking hard enough. And so I have the honor to call Nicole and Rudayna two of our Solver teams. And in the next 30 minutes, we are going to hear about their experiences as entrepreneurs, their leadership style, and what has been most helpful in terms of support and ecosystem as they grow. One note for everyone who's joined us, please do add your questions in the chat. We want to hear from you. We want you to be part of the conversation. We want this to be interactive. And I guess one of the advantages of a virtual event is that we can do that easily. So let's take advantage of that. And that's it. Let's get to the interesting part now. And I'm going to ask Nicole and Rudayna to tell us about yourself and your work. Maybe we start with Nicole.
Thank you so much, Hala. It's so great to be here with all of you guys. And please ask questions. This is a chance to use our experience and learn and have a share. So, my background is in the apparel industry, specifically in sustainability and sourcing. I worked for a number of companies, starting at Patagonia, Prana here in the US, and then did sustainability for, I had a consulting firm to do sustainability. But the company that I started, the Renewal workshop, which is how I got connected to MIT Solve, started about 5 years ago as a response to the overproduction of things in the world and how brands were creating waste and didn't have a real solution for it. So our company works with apparel and textile brands to take all their products at the end of its life, returns or damages, and or things that get given back to a brand, so take back programs. And then we have a factory where we clean, repair, and enable resale. So you can check out our website, therenewalworkshop.com, or thenorthfacerenewed.com, which is a site we do. Or if you're in Europe, which I see there's a lot of people to hear, we also run a site for Tommy Hilfiger called Tommy for Life. And so what you see is companies that are now able to be more circular in how they design and deliver products to consumers. So it's not just new things, but renewed things as well. So I'll stop there and hand it over to you, Rudayna.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks, Hala. Great to see you both again, and wonderful to be here. A little bit about myself, an urban planner. So my career has been in urban planning internationally, North America, the Middle East, in the nonprofit, public, private, and nonprofit sectors. But similar to you, Nicole, I also did a turn about 5-6 years ago, and am now in the ed tech arena. And that was very much in response to the refugee crisis that we see in the Middle East. And that's when I founded Thaki. And what Thaki does is leverages the private sector for assets they no longer need. So we get donated laptops for digital literacy, digital inclusion, and for refugee and vulnerable children. And we do that by leveraging assets no longer needed by their original users, in our case, laptops, and educational content that we load on these laptops that are contextualized for the Arab learner. And we get lots of educational content from content creators. We've created our own user interface, and then we get those laptops for e-learning to refugee and vulnerable children. We've been mostly working in Lebanon and are now starting in Jordan with plans to grow in the region. So it's really remarkable, just such an amazing learning journey, stepping into this tech industry and education, and really bridging the various sectors in this high impact arena, I guess, where education is very much needed, where children are literally missing out on their future. Many have been out of school for years, so we're stepping in to try to help address that gap.
Thank you so much, Rudayna. I think every time I hear you talk, both of you, about your work, I get energized, and I'm reminded of the scale of the problems that we have to solve. And here's another thing that I think you have in common, which is you're not just running an organization, you're not just women running your business, you're not just focused on creating a positive impact in the world with your work, but your companies in fact challenge the existing economic structures and call for a more circular economy in two very different ways. So I'm interested in hearing what inspired you to do this work, and maybe going to you, Nicole, especially that the fashion industry has been turned on its head with the pandemic. I'm curious to hear also how you've adapted.
So I think the company and the work that I do now has arrived here because of the evolution of my life and the work that I've done. And I think what we always do as humans is we start to, if there's a problem, we try and start to solve for it. And then we realize, we're not solving for the right problem. And so we keep trying to tweak and get at the root cause of eventually, I'm actually solving the problem that I want to. And one of the things that I realized, it took me years, but was that the actual business model of the apparel industry is what was broken, and not necessarily the things moving through it, although that had, there's sustainability issues with that. But at the end of the day, we have to figure out how do we grow our economy without making new things, because we just don't have a planet. We don't have an extra planet in our back pocket. We gotta figure this one out. So that was just sort of an evolution of time. I don't think I originally was I'm going to try and do work that's changing our economy, because I think that would have made me not do it, because that sounds like a lot. But what has been fascinating for me in this last year with COVID is that because the global economy had to stop doing business as usual, it really pointed out where there were problems. And what I was surprised by is how many people responded in the apparel industry, not to, I want to go back to where we were, but a recognition that the way we were doing business is not going to be feasible in the future. And so more and more companies are starting to, in the apparel sector, realize maybe I do have to sell my products again, or maybe I do have to do my business differently. And that has been very inspiring to me, that there is a lot of energy to not go back to a way that was destructive.
Super interesting. Thank you, Nicole. And I definitely want to go back to some of the things that you just mentioned. I think there's the value of chewing the elephant one bite at a time, and the way the pandemic maybe has widened the cracks that already existed and made them no longer, no one can ignore them anymore. And Rudayna, it's a little similar also for you. I mean, millions of families around the world have been forced to become teachers in the past year now. And, homeschooling is not easy anyway, even during normal times. And of course, for refugees, it's been, it comes with additional trauma and displacement and disconnection to the internet and all of that. So I would love to hear more about how your solution helped resolve some of these issues in education, both for refugees and maybe what can be taken also for, other populations.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just to put it in context, we all learned in COVID that almost half of the world is not connected. So it's not just the communities that we work with, but globally. But the communities that we work with have, it's a double whammy, triple whammy that they've had to endure, given the disconnection, the lack of resources, being disconnected from teaching components. So in our case, we focus on offline learning. Internet connectivity is a tremendous issue. It's not accessible. It's in the communities where we work. You are lucky to get a very light 3G data plan that's affordable to the family that's sharing one phone amongst 8 people potentially in that household. So COVID really put a huge spotlight on this digital divide, and we really stepped in to see how we can support the communities that we work with. So this offline learning, we load educational content on the laptops, but it's engaged learning, it's interactive, and it's contextualized to the Middle East, to the learners there. And we've also focused our platform on the SDGs, on digital literacy, and future-focused 21st century skills. So to gear the children, and actually the teachers, it's not just the children, it's the teachers, it's the adults who are interacting with the platform. And, going back to the point of circular economy, this whole I don't think I was so familiar with the term when I started it, but we really are very much defining what we do in all aspects, because we get the hardware from corporations and institutions that are no longer needing them because they need to upgrade. So we get devices that 5 years later are still alive. So we're doing a lifetime extension of these assets and helping on the carbon aspect there as well. And then on the content side, so it doesn't just have to be the hardware, it's also on the content from the content creators who are sharing. In many cases, we have proprietary content, but it's donated to us by the creators because of the mission that we're reaching. And we've, tapping a lot into in-kind support from expertise from corporations to bring these systems. So yes, those of us who are parents have suddenly have to deal with homeschooling. And we learned, we stepped in quickly to see what's going on, how can we support, and what are our partners doing. There aren't enough laptops out there to distribute amongst families and in households. They're just not. There's a huge demand globally and definitely within the communities that we reach. So we quickly turned into teaching through WhatsApp support systems. And because this is one thing that is the only means that many of the families do have a light data plan with WhatsApp on it. So we ran a campaign in March, actually early in COVID, on tech tricks in teaching with WhatsApp. And we disseminated this, through WhatsApp because that is the most popular platform. And we're involved with a lot of the organizations and discourse on how to move forward when you don't have the hardware, when you don't have the connectivity. How can you go about this? So it's, some of us think we have it hard right now with just trying to keep our kids going at school while we have all of this infrastructure and resources. And it's tough, but it's been remarkable to see the innovation, the creativity, and the uptake from the community. We were working with some teachers who were hesitant to take on, intimidated by the technology, by the laptops, and, bringing them along over the years. And whoa, what happened in 3 weeks, in these 3 weeks of March, how quickly people were turned around and absorbed and were able to come onto that platform.
I mean, it's incredible, the parallel for both of you, and how quickly you were able to pivot and aggressively kind of, rethink what you do to make the most of the crisis. And we see this with our other entrepreneurs, particularly women, just really, reimagining the product, the services. And it's great to hear that, both of your businesses are even more essential right now. So I love that there are already questions trickling in, and we should definitely get to them. One thing that so in the actually, why don't we take the question, because it's related directly to what we were just talking about in terms of the existence of hard infrastructure and the the role that plays in the ultimate success of your organizations, and that's a question from Monique.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to jump in because we're doing what we're doing because of infrastructure issues and constraints. That's when I started Thaki. I was hoping that we could get, maybe go to Google Loons and get internet connectivity over the areas where they're not connected. And then I realized this is a problem that's a bit bigger than me to try to solve. So that's when we moved to the offline learning and curating the quality content that would supplement and help the learning for the communities over there. But it is a constraint. It's not the long-term solution. What we're doing is good for the short term, and really internet accessibility infrastructure should be accessible to all. And hopefully all of these efforts, global efforts, will get us there sooner rather than later. So in the interim, this was our intervention of what to do. And also with COVID and what's happened with the constraints, we wanted to, we're going digital in all aspects that we can, pushing the digital, enabling digital. So we have launched the pilot version, and this year we will be developing a very robust program for teacher training. So we're creating a digital toolkit, which is online. It's on our website, but it's downloadable. The components are downloadable. There are mini courses, bite-sized, geared towards the teachers to show them the how-tos. How do you use computers in a classroom? What is a computer? How do you integrate the courses that are there, or the programs? How do you manage remote learning? And all the while, bringing in teachings on SDG and knowledge on SDG and digital literacy and those 21st century skills that I talked about. So I hope this addresses some of the question in part.
Thank you. And yes, there are some folks who are dropping also resources that you should look into, Rudayna. So that's great. Nicole, do you want to address it? Do you want to address the question as well? You're still on mute. The quote of the
quote of the year, exactly. So what's interesting about our company is that because we're in the business of actually moving things around, just Rudayna is as well, we have to touch things. So we have to have sort of an infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and we also employ people to manage the products through our operations. So it's been very interesting when investors look at us and people look at us, they're like, oh, isn't technology the future? As if it's only that. And we rely very much, and it's actually kind of amazing how much of our business is the system that runs our company, the ERP, is on the cloud. There's so much virtualness. We have operations also in Amsterdam and in the US. So it's just this intertwine of both physical and then tech and how that works together. And something else that's been very eye-opening for me in the last year is also the policy and the regulations around these things as well, that we weren't really expecting as a small business. But when you start having customers and dealing with customer data and privacy, what I find now is starting a company today is not just setting up the lemonade stand and waiting for the people to come by. It is incredibly complex really quickly. But that's good. I think that's sort of a nice, I like where we've landed in the sense of it's both a blend of physical and digital.
And it's and for both of you, it's this bridge between where we are today, which is pretty messy and imperfect, and where we want to be. And that's what I really love about what you both do. You exist in the world of today, and you're looking very much forward in how it can be much better. For the remaining time, I actually want to shift from your business to talking about yourselves, you as leaders, and what has been most helpful to you as entrepreneurs. So why don't we start with, would love to hear from you about how you show up as a leader, just as yourselves. What is your authentic leadership? What does it look like? And Nicole, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I think, and I can kind of answer one of the questions in the chat as well through this is, so my career had been, I worked in sustainability. I sort of did an internship, and I just sort of got the next job and worked my way up. And I didn't really sort of identify myself as an entrepreneur or I'm a leader in some way. It's just sort of this is the work I do. And this work happens to be quite leadership. But when I decided I'd been working on the Renewal workshop as an idea for about a year while I was doing another job. And then eventually it sort of tipped the scale when we went and got investment money, and we realized that this was going to be a real business. And so I slowly like let go of my old life, and this became my whole new life. I actually had a moment where I identified like I would like some help to figure out what kind of leader I want to be, because it is true, like my entire career, I only had male bosses. And I recognized that, and I read a lot and recognized that, who I wanted to show up as a leader may or may not be what's received in the work environment. So I definitely did some work with a business coach to really talk through what is my leadership vision and what is that style and what is authentic to me. So I have a little few words that I write down, and I have sort of like a mantra of like, I want to show up in a vision, like I want to be visionary to the idea that of the work that brings me purpose. I've always wanted to be fair, and I wanted to be authentic. And so sort of using those words when things come up inside the business, I sort of gut check myself to that. And I will say there are many moments where I get in my own way. And if I would just like remove my, like the imposter syndrome words or any sort of self-doubt, like that's what everyone wants. And that's where I want to be. And so you have to kind of like, you're always coaching yourself to show up and be the person that you want to. And I think one of the things that I really have now heard over time is like, what are the things that people really love about my leadership style? And then also being aware of where my leadership style falls short. So I have a very long rope I give people, and sometimes I'll get taken advantage of. And I'm learning to like navigate that and be better at like having the rope, move depending on the situation. So yeah, just being sort of very intentional about watching what your leadership style has been an important growth journey for me.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nicole. It's really inspiring. I love the mantra of visionary, fair, authentic, and that self-awareness that is required so that we are constantly adapting in a way. We're constantly, reinventing what it means for ourselves to be leaders. And the imposter syndrome is really something that upsets me, because I think the answer to overcoming imposter syndrome is not to fix individuals. We don't need fixing. We need the environment to, acknowledge our accomplishments and not tell us to, that we don't belong. I think it's kind of like the relics of a culture that we're trying to shed, all of us. So I commend you for looking that in the eye and facing it. So thank you for sharing that. And, Rudayna, I also want to hear from you. Tell us what leadership means to you.
Yeah, well, lots of resonance, by the way, with what you've said. And for me, that imposter syndrome and the saboteur that is in my shadow all the time, I have to say it's mostly my own. It's my own shadow and my own weight that I impose upon myself. And I think I'm a very different leader now than I was earlier in my career. I have softened a lot. When I was in my mid-30s, thinking I had to be hard, I had to be edgy, I had to be strong, and now that was not the skin that I was comfortable in. And I'm just, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I show, vulnerability, all of that. I very much do that. And with my staff, with my team, it's giving people the benefit of the doubt. So starting from the benefit of the doubt and assuming that a collaboration, partnership, ownership of those who are working together, and just really being the authentic self, showing emotion, and tapping into a very strong pool of advisors and mentors, whether they know it or not. Some of them may be labeled as mentors, and others have been there coaching me along the way. And likewise, I've done some effective and very helpful coaching sessions. And with some of my, there's one mentor in particular, I go to him and say, you need to be soft with me this time. I don't need the hard talking. This is when I need the soft talking. I'm in a very vulnerable position, so that they know how to approach me. And I think that's a fair thing to do with people who with whom you have a relationship, who can support you, ask them what you need from them at that time, because it's your hardest critic all the time. So sometimes you really need to be told that to ease off, take it easy, go for a run, and just to let things dissipate.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's, it's interesting, the continuum that you and Nicole have talked about in terms of, showing up as tough, because these are the leadership models that we've grown up with, and then being too soft and having to, shorten the rope sometimes. So thank you for that. And yes, Alex, in the chat, this is exactly the article that I had in mind. It's like fixed cultures, not women. One other thing that I wanted to hear from you about is, and I think I started hearing actually some of this in terms of coaching and mentorship. I'm wondering what have been the most helpful things in terms of ecosystem of support that you found along the way. And maybe, I'm sure there are entrepreneurs also among our listeners, and there's an entrepreneur in each of us. What would be what would be things that you would really recommend for others that are looking to follow a similar journey?
Go ahead.
All right. Go outside of your bounds. So go outside of your comfort zone, and not just in terms of being comfortable what to do, but going outside of your profession, outside of your area of expertise. And that's where the inspiration will come. I think to me, that has been the times when most of the triggers have been, the light bulbs have come on. And for me, I think, I mentioned that exercise is really important, not just for physical, mental health, but that's where all the ideas generate. I think Thaki was born when I was swimming laps in the Arabian Gulf, for an hour every day. Just I think in a nutshell, I thought that would be it.
I love it. Thank you, Nicole.
I would say, as you're starting, any entrepreneurship, anything, is like, do your homework and really understand what you're trying to accomplish and how that fits in the unfortunate existing structure of the world. So a lot of amazing ideas just aren't businesses, or they fit better in a nonprofit, or they fit better in a business. And like, what is the business model? And there's amazing resources now. There's so many people who want to see women succeed in entrepreneurship. So there's like great accelerators and great things, but do your homework and find a network to support you, because there's a lot of people who want you to be successful, and they're out there. And then the other one is, yes, sleep, eat, and exercise.
There's no escaping that, and eat your veggies.
Yeah, eat well. Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your feedback, everyone who's writing us in the chat. It looks like there are quite a few connections that have been made. Nicole, Rudayna, and myself will add also our own links in the chat so that you stay connected with us. Any final, we have 1 minute left. Any final thoughts? Maybe Rudayna and then Nicole.
Yeah, I'd say show up. Show up and don't say no to anything. Go for it, exhaust yourself, do it, and see what comes out of it. So yeah, don't say no to opportunities, don't say no to anything, and show up.
Thank you so much. Nicole, you get the final word. No pressure.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I'm taking away from this, and that is, yes, it's the system, not you. And so don't. I'm not gonna hint or cling to this imposter syndrome. I'm going to move past it. So thank you guys for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's been with us. It's been really a lovely discussion. It's always such an inspiration to hear from you, Nicole and Rudayna. And everyone, please stay in touch. You have our contacts. We are now going to end this session. I can't believe it's been half an hour, but this is all the time we get with you. It's been great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.